Welcome back to Kapow. Here in the comfy confines of King's Comics, we cast a hungry eye over comics, cartoons and collectibles. I'm Sonya.
And I'm Al's evil twin.
And this week we're taking... Wait, what did you say?
I said I'm Al. Now this week we'll be looking at the trade collection of Scott Snyder's miniseries Severed, and we'll also be looking at a new Image title called 5 Weapons.
Yeah, and Ray is going to be in a bit later on, and we're having a look at the Kotobukiya Justice League figures, which are going to be awesome.
Yeah, I agree, but first let's have a gander at the Will Eisner collection Last Day in Vietnam.
Hang on, I'm sure you... Never mind. The problem with reviewing anything by Will Eisner is that, well, it's Will Eisner. There's an award named after him.
Yes, I do know what you're saying. He is kind of the godfather of comic book storytelling in many ways, and it's often a problem finding enough superlatives when describing his work. But we are taking a look at the hardcover collection Last Day in Vietnam, so we need to give it a fair evaluation.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's start by giving a bit of an overview of the book. Last Day in Vietnam is a series of vignettes with stories coming from the Vietnamese and the Korean War. Some of them are funny, some of them are heartbreaking, and some of them are both.
Yeah, a number of them, really.
Yeah.
I found the perspectives used in a lot of these very effective, especially in the title story, Last Day in Vietnam. It's put you in the first-person perspective that really kind of brings home this confusion and futility and insanity in war.
Yeah, I think my favourite one was actually the last one, A Purple Heart for George. As with all the other vignettes in the collection, it has an extremely simple premise. It's about a guy habitually getting drunk on the weekend and applying for a transfer to a combat unit, and then his friends ripping up that request before their captain even gets to see it.
That's the thing though, despite this being a collection of stories about war, you actually don't see any violence.
No.
There's maybe the odd explosion off in the distance or something like that, but you don't see any direct violence, people actually getting hurt. It's always the result of it. And I don't know if that's a knock-on effect of Eisner's experience of war, having been as a journalist and having been necessarily slightly removed from that direct violence.
Yeah, as you say though, the feeling of danger and violence is still there, along with an overarching melancholy, even in the funnier stories. This is an incredibly personal journey through some of mankind's worst moments, and the focus on the smaller details and the individual characters kind of gives you a larger sense of the conflict.
Yeah, well, I mean, Eisner was a master storyteller in pretty much every way. I've got to say, though, my one criticism here is that I felt like it was a little bit short in length.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, you can probably knock this over in under 15 minutes of reading, well, and that kind of bugged me a little bit.
Yeah, you could if you were just ploughing through and not taking in any of the artwork or the smaller moments. I mean, Casualty, which is another one of my favourite stories, has no words. It's just the art.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't just skip over that one, obviously.
I know.
Look, I do hammer through stories pretty quickly as a habit, but I did pick this one up again after I'd finished reading it and went through it again slower to take in all the detail.
There is an incredible nuance that Eisner puts into each quirk of his characters' faces and bodies is quite remarkable.
I guess you're right.
And I also think it's worth mentioning that this won the 2001 Harvey Award for Best Graphic Album, and now that Dark Horse has released it in a hardcover edition, it's a really good time for you guys to get your hands on it and add it to your collection, because it really is a beautiful book that deserves to be on everybody's shelves. It's a buy from me. Yeah,
look, it is quite a fascinating piece of work, and I think it does go without saying it's a brilliant piece of war fiction that is well worth the read. I do feel it could have used maybe just one more story in there.
You always want more.
Well, why not? Why not? One more story from his collection, because I mean, this was just a collection.
This was his collection.
You could have brought one more in just to round it out. That said, it is still fantastic. It's great, the extra material that's been put in this collection, the foreword and everything like that. So it's still definitely a buy.
Ray, stop playing with Green Lantern.
Sorry.
Welcome.
Hello, yes. Over the last few weeks, we've been looking at a lot of high-end statues, those that you may have to save for, so we thought we'd take a look at something within everyone's reach this week.
This is the first batch of the New 52 statues, right, Aaron?
Yeah, that's right. There's been a lot of action figures released, but Kotobukiya have jumped on this opportunity to celebrate the new looks and costumes to familiar characters of the relaunched titles to bring you these ArtFX Plus statues. First to be released are the members of the Justice League. They're all 1/10 scale, which equates to about 7.5 inches. They're all sculpted by the master artist Gutaru Takeuchi, otherwise known as 8-Layer Bamboo. The characters were modelled from the Jim Lee and Scott Williams cover of Justice League, the New 52, issue number 1. So we have the first 3 released here today. These guys are all within the $50 price point. They're all sculpted in a very stoic pose, and they're all sporting an electrified paint job, which I really like because it makes the figures pop.
Yeah, now all the bases are quite simple, but they're also magnetic, which gives a really nice stability to each character.
Yeah.
Now, not everybody is going to want every single one,
No.
unlike us. So let's take a look at each character individually.
Great idea. Let's start with Soups. He stands in a classic heroic pose, his feet spread apart and his fists held tensely at his sides. The intense look on his face captures the Kryptonian's focus and drive, while his sculpted muscles appear through his new textured suit. The figure also sports the new tech belt and boots. Sonya?
He looks a little bit like Superboy from Young Justice in my eyes.
Yes.
Somewhere in between, Superman and Superboy. The black S on the back of his cape there is quite an interesting choice. I think
is.
some fans are going to like it, some
Yep.
fans maybe not so much.
Yeah, I also think he's a little on the slender side. I would have liked him to be just a little broader across the chest. And I'm not so sure about the candy apple red of the boots. I thought they could have toned down a little bit on that, just to sort of, I don't know, match that of the cape as well. Also, his face looks very anime-like. So I'm gonna have to give this one a borrow.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Look, overall, I think he looks pretty good, but he doesn't quite do it for me, so I'm going to give him a borrow as well.
Okay, great.
Let's move on to Mr. Green Lantern here.
The Green Lantern stands with his right fist raised, ready to unleash his ring's energy. Kotobukiya's comprehensive details include the ring-generated New 52 style suit, including the shoulder pad-like armor and, of course, the logo on his chest. The electric green really suits the Green Lantern. It's as though the power of the ring is emanating through him and his suit as he's standing there.
Yeah.
Although, looking at him and Soups, I find them both similar in their shape and their stance, and also the shape of the head and the expression, and even the wind-swept hair is also very similar. But I've figured out what it is. Obviously, there was a southeasterly blowing the day of the shoot.
Of course.
Of course.
Yes.
So, this particular figure I'm going to give a borrow as well. I really like him.
Yeah, look, I really like him as well. I think the body shape on this guy suits a little bit more than Superman.
Yes.
But I really, really love the detail on the ring, that the light green around the ring kind of gives it that glow and that emanating
detail.
power. It's a really nice detail. I really like Green Lantern. I'm going to give him a buy.
All right. Let's go on to the Flash.
Absolutely.
The Scarlet Speedster looks ready to run, cracking his knuckles in anticipation. The New 52 costume maintains the character's traditional red and yellow color scheme, but updates it with a bold new lightning bolt logo and intricate energy lines running all over his suit. Now, I like the subtle lightning details through the suit, and just like the Green Lantern, this metallic paintwork really suits the Flash's character.
Totally.
I'm impressed with the head on this figure, and I also like the little wings as well on the side. They look really cool. The little engravings on the boots to indicate speed and the gold color of the boots really set this figure alight. The Flash definitely gets a buy from me.
Yeah, look, I gotta say, out of the 3 that we have here today, the Flash is probably my favourite.
Yeah, it's cool.
There's something about him, the way he's cracking his knuckles, it's a bit cheeky, he's goading you on. It kind of suits his character, so he's definitely a buy from me as well.
But there's something that we haven't discussed yet.
No, now each one of these little characters are really lovely on their own.
Sure.
But when you put them together, something begins to happen.
They come alive!
No, they don't come alive, Ray. Calm down. No. They're just statues. Okay.
Right.
What happens is, you start to get a sense of how awesome they'd look standing together as the Justice League. And that means that if you collect them all, you would have a 3D version of Jim Lee and Scott Williams' cover to show off.
And that would be freaking awesome.
Absolutely would be.
Not as cool as if they did come alive, though, I have to say.
Right, that's it. It's time out for you. Go sit in the corner.
Where Evil Al is tied up?
No, the other one.
Good.
That's my favourite. Books like Harry Potter introduced us to the idea of a school for kids that have magical abilities. The X-Men introduced us to a school for kids with mutant abilities. But what about a school for other specialised vocations?
Yeah, what about a school for kids who have a gift for killing people?
Yeah,
Kids who are good with guns or knives or those chain things that are weighted at both ends and you kind of swing them around your head.
Manriki Gusari.
Is that what those are called?
Yes.
Anyway, Jimmy Robinson's new creator-owned title through Image, 5 Weapons, delves into these very waters, with a young lad named Tyler Shainlin entering a school that teaches mastery of 5 different weapon styles: knives, staves, archery, guns, and exotic weapons.
Now, a lot of things fall into that last category, exotic weapons. Everything from garrots to blow darts to poisons. But now, which club would you join if you went to this school, Al?
Probably knives, because it covers all bladed weapons, but
Yeah.
sword fighting would be cool.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about you?
It'd be a toss-up. It would be hard. It's either archery, because, bows and arrows are cool, or exotic weapons. Because honestly, who doesn't want to be a ninja?
Well, apparently Tyler doesn't. Despite being the son of one of the most famous hitmen in the world, he arrives at the school unarmed and seems to want to stay that way, using his wits instead of weapons to get the better of people.
Well, see, that's the thing. By the end of this first issue, you realise that there is a lot more to Tyler than first meets the eye.
Yes, but
secret squirrel on that one.
Yes, we won't spoil that at
No.
all, but I do think it's an interesting play by Robinson to drop the bombshell, which we won't say, at the end of the first issue. I mean,
Totally.
it could quite easily have been held over until the end of this 5-issue run,
Yep.
make it a real moment. But instead, I get the feeling that he's done that because he's not trying to tell some dark, mysterious, twisty story.
No.
He's trying to tell a story that'll be fun, and he just wants the reader to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, there's quite a quirky sense of humour to both the story and the art style, which Robinson also does. And it's really quite endearing and a hell of a lot of fun. I wouldn't be surprised if this miniseries actually becomes an ongoing series. I really enjoyed this. I can't wait to read the rest of them. It's definitely a buy from me.
Yeah, look, from me as well, a big old buy. Although I will say it may be a bit tricky to get your hands on. You may need to wait for a reprint because this pretty much just ran straight off the shelves. We
had so much trouble getting it.
Yeah, we meant to do this last week, but we couldn't get a copy. Thanks only to some Intrepid King stuff that we actually managed to get a hold of it.
Indeed.
So, look, definitely a buy from me. And when they announce the trade edition of this 5-issue run, I'm definitely putting in an order for that.
Me too.
You know, there's a fine line to be walked in horror comics, I think, especially when they're released under a creator-owned imprint. There's a danger of falling victim to the worst excesses of blood-drenched torture porn, which relies far too heavily on shock value and carries nothing of the creeping dread that all the best horror stories have. So I'll admit to being a little bit wary when I first started reading Severed.
Really? See, I do understand what you were saying about the horror genre, but the inclusion of Scott Snyder's name on this one really put to bed any fears I had about the quality of the story. And within the first kind of few pages of Attila Fataki's work, I was at least very confident that it was going to look very, very good.
Yes, I know what you mean. As it turned out, my fears were groundless.
Indeed.
But look, we should lay a little bit of groundwork on what the story's actually about.
Yes, we probably should. Severed begins with the delivery of an envelope to an old man named Jack Gannon, and the first 2 pages we learn something that will give you a sense of unease that continues throughout the book. Jack tells everyone that he lost his right arm in the war, but that isn't the truth. And with a title like Severed, you're already beginning to draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty masterful plot device when it comes right down to it. Because then we jump back in time to Jack's childhood, when he runs away from home on the search for his birth father. Throughout this book, you're filled with this sense of dread about what's going to happen and how it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's exactly what you were saying about good horror stories.
Yeah.
You become so invested in this young man's adventure. His time riding the rails, the relationship he develops with Sam, you almost forget the horror that's lurking on the horizon.
And that's when Scott Snyder and Scott Tuft drop in their truly terrifying villain. I mean, this guy reminds me a lot of, if any of you were Buffy fans as I was in the day, there was a character called Der Kinderstadt, who was a monster that preyed on sick children in the hospital. This one kind of reminded me of that, but with a laid-over charisma and intelligence that just made him truly malevolent.
And he looks so unutterably evil. Futaki's artwork goes a long way towards establishing this book's horror cred. He pretty much uses only standard comic paneling, there's nothing out of the ordinary, but his choices on perspective, on framing, and the incredibly detailed character models put this book a step above most horror comics. It's a buy from me. However, it is a buy, read, hide under the pillow and sleep with the lights on for the next week. Buy.
Okay, interesting. I don't think we've had one of those before. I do know what you mean, though. It took me quite a while after I finished reading this to shake that feeling of oncoming doom, which is quite an achievement, I think. Scott Snyder and Scott Tuft really have created quite an impressive piece of period horror fiction, and I recommend it very highly to anyone who has even a passing interest in the horror genre. This is definitely a buy.
Well, there you go, guys. Can you believe it? We are at the end of our second to last episode of Kapow for this season.
Time flies when you're reading a comic.
Absolutely, just the one.
Yes, just
excellent. Don't forget, guys, you can still enter our competition to win The Dark Knight Returns Part 2. All you have to do is pop onto Facebook and let us know which DC comic you think should be adapted into animation and why.
Yeah, so don't forget, as always, to jump on over to sftv.com.au, where this week we're looking at RIPD, City of the Damned, and also Lost Vegas.
Yeah.
So until next week...
No, hang on a second. I want to know what you've done with Real Al.
What are you talking about?
I know that you're Al's evil twin.
No, I'm... Okay, how did you figure it out?
Well, your hair's different, and you're a little bit taller, and I saw your evil twin union card when you were buying coffee. So.
Oh, okay, fine. That's actually the real Al tied up in the corner. What are you gonna do?
Nothing. Dude, I'm Sonya's evil twin. I've got her chloroformed out back.
No way!
Yep.
That's fantastic!
I know.
Where are you from?
Parallel universe. You?
Oh, botched cloning experiment.
Excellent. Classic.
Isn't it?
Love it.
You want to go get a sandwich or
Yeah,
something?
I am starving.
I don't know how they do this every week.
No idea.
Did you?
Good.
No time.
No time. Okay. Hey guys, this week in Kapow,